Welcome back to Winning Hand, and today we're doing something slightly different. As you can see if you're watching this on YouTube, I have 6 people with me today, and we are going to do a panel discussion about the Con of Heroes. So maybe this applies to you. If you're going to the Con of Heroes, this certainly applies to you. I think there's going to be a lot of good information about the con and what to expect and what we've had in past years. And if you're not attending the con, I think you still may find some value here, because if you're going to any group Marvel Champions game or any other big meetup, some of these things may apply to you. So I'm going to have everyone go around and introduce themselves first. Obviously, I am Boomguy. You know me if you clicked on this video. So let's start with number 1, VJakson. Why don't you go first and tell us your name and how many cons you've been to and when, like, how long you're going to be there this time, like when you're getting into town and when you're leaving.
Okay, hello everyone. I am VJakson, Brian, on the Discords, and this will be my second con. Last year was my first one, and I fly in sometime around midday Thursday, around 1 or 2 o'clock, I think, and then I leave in the later evening on Sunday.
Can't believe this is your first con.
Wait,
this is your first con?
I just said my second
I'm sorry.
con.
I'm so sorry.
Oh.
I can't believe that last con was your first con. That's what I meant.
Okay.
That's so crazy.
We're off to a great
so
start.
crazy.
AndyR, why don't you introduce
That
yourself?
was a great start.
Andy over here trying to gaslight me.
AndyR, why don't you go next?
Okay, sorry. This will be my, I think, is it 4th con? I've been to all the cons. So however many there have been, I've been to all of them. And I live here in Minnesota, so I will be here and, yeah, not leaving. And I will be hanging out. I'm planning to hang out starting, like, at least Thursday, if not Wednesday night, if people are already flying in. So, and yeah. That's me.
Astrodar?
To me next. So this will be my 3.5 con. I technically bought tickets and everything to the first con, but then we got COVID and I did not get to go. So
Right.
otherwise, I've been to all the rest. I'm getting in on Thursday morning, so I will be in the hotel by 11 playing games.
Nice.
And I think I'm leaving Sunday, like mid-afternoon. So I miss a little bit of the con there at the end.
Awesome. I think I'm next. MrSelfDestruct. You can call me Derek. This is my second con. First one was last year. Had an amazing time. So this year I'm doing the full gamut, flying in, I think, early Wednesday and leaving late Monday. So in my head I did it so I could see some more of Minnesota, but I know I'll just be playing more cards, probably. But I hope to see some of Minnesota. It seemed great.
Caldias?
Hey, I'm Caldias, or Craig. I went to the con last year. It was my first con, and I was kind of had some FOMO because of missing Monday. So I'm flying in Wednesday evening. I think I get in around 9:30 Minnesota time, and then I'm leaving. I stayed through till Monday. I'm leaving like Monday afternoon.
All right. That's what we like to
Nice.
hear.
So, hey, I'm Andy, also known as AndyR. One of the Andys. Just well, actually more like an Andy. The Andy is the other one.
No.
But yeah, this will be my second con. Last year was my first time. I'll be arriving Thursday, probably around like 2 o'clock ish, 3 o'clock ish, and similar to Astrodar. Like once I check into the hotel room, I'm grabbing the decks and heading to the lobby to play some games. I'll be there till about Sunday at, I don't know, 2-ish? Sure. And excited to get to meet anyone who shows up and wants to play.
Awesome. Well, my name is Boomguy. I'm a Sagittarius, and I like fancy dinners and long walks on the beach. None of that is true. I'm actually a Capricorn. But the point is, I am Boomguy, and that was what we needed to learn there. So basically, this is kind of an informal discussion. I just want to kind of go around. I have a few questions I want to ask everybody that I think are pertinent to people who are coming to the con or who may want to come to the con in the future. If you haven't gotten tickets yet, I'm sorry it's too late. They were sold out multiple times over, but you should come next year. So we exceeded how many spaces we have this year. There's basically 2 capacity up to the fire code limit, and no more can come in for tickets. But I think next year we'll probably end up moving to a different venue that can accommodate a larger crowd, because it keeps growing every year. So that's awesome. So the first thing I wanted to kind of talk to everyone about is the discussion I see all the time on Discord is, what should I bring? How many heroes should I bring? What other things should I bring? Do I need all my tokens? Should I bring my big fancy buy the same token villain board? How many playmats do I need? All kinds of stuff. So anybody can just jump in. I'm not going to go around and call on you like we're in grade school, so just hop in. But what are some things that people should pack if they are thinking about coming to the con?
Yeah, I think last time, especially with being the first and not knowing, I brought 8 hero decks and ended up only playing 3 of them. But I will say, like, in general, getting to have one of each aspect of what you enjoy is worthwhile. At least from my front, what I noticed is that, you know, the first thing everyone decides is, hey, which aspect, because they've generally paired it with a hero that they want to play. And so, like, as long as you have something of each aspect, I think you'll probably be okay. But I want to caveat that with everyone's super friendly, like way more than I expected, in just the best way possible. If you're like, oh, I don't have a protection deck, I only brought with me this justice deck, everyone else will gladly be like, okay, well then I'll play whatever aspect. So, you know, like, bring what you feel comfortable with. But I remember for me, I came back being like, I think I only just need 1 hero of each aspect, honestly.
Yeah, I'm really indecisive, so I brought 10 decks last year, and I think I'm bringing 10-ish this year. 2 of each aspect, including pool. I did play every single one last year, so if you, like me, are indecisive and want to bring, you know, a bunch of decks, you can make it happen, because you're going to play a couple dozen games at least, like maybe 3 dozen plus. As far as fancy tokens and playmats and things like that, so last year I did not bring a playmat. I ended up wanting one, so I bought one at the store, and they had plenty of them, so I bought one and used that. The tokens, that's relatively up to you. I would advise, if you're flying or you're traveling in a way where maybe you have a layover or something, or you're waiting at a train station, it is kind of cool to get a game going, sitting there while you're waiting for your boarding. So bring some tokens for that. And, you know, once you get to the con, most people have tokens. So I ended up not really using my tokens at the con, but in the hotel room before and after, sometimes, you know, you're playing with 1 or 2 other people, and it's just good to have a few tokens there. But I would say tokens, you can get away with the minimal amount to play a game just for your own deck. And then most people have them available. So if you're trying to travel light, that is a way to save some space. Yeah, I would say be prepared if you're flying to have your cards, if you're taking it on carry-on, to be able to take it out of your bag and put it into the X-ray, because they will make you open them probably and look at them. So if you're a little disorganized with that, it might be a little slow getting through security.
Yeah, last year I flew with my burger tokens, and they're essentially, you know, they're just pennies with little stickers on each side, and they pulled me for additional security right away. They were like, what is this? And that my bag had to go to the screening.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah, it's same, like when they set my bag aside, they're like, is there anything you need to tell us before we open this up? And it was like, I'm a nerd. That's what you're going to find out.
Yeah.
So someone told me that at the con. They're like, hey, next time, just take it out, have the lid open, because it was one of those layers from Gamegenic. And sure enough, when it went through in its own bin, it made it through without being pulled over. I didn't have to admit to anyone that I play this super niche card game. It was a better experience.
That's good.
It's super embarrassing if they open it up and they find that, you know, you were the one that brought Doctor Strange to the con, or you have Valkyrie sitting there on top.
They're gonna out you.
Just, no.
This goes right on the public Discord.
My comment on that note is that, like, bring who you're going to have fun playing, like in terms of your decks. nobody cares. So like if it's a super niche hero, if it's someone overly strong, doesn't matter. Just build what you're gonna have fun with. We're just chucking cards and having fun the whole time. So really, I don't put any thought into what people might be thinking about. Oh, this is not a super optimized deck, or this is Doctor Strange, or whatever. So I played a lot of Groot last year.
For the record, I did play
Doctor
Doctor Strange last year. A-okay with it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would say. Just, bring something you're going to have fun with for whatever number of decks you actually do end up bringing. I fit with AndyR, where I started my first year, I brought 8, I think, and then just kind of started cutting it down from there. This year I'll probably just bring 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think you definitely want to bring 4 or 5 at least. I love the example of at least one in each aspect is a good rule of thumb. And I don't know if I'm indecisive, but I definitely brought 9 decks last year and played them all. And I just had a lot of different decks I wanted to see in action with with a whole group of 3 or 4 people. So for me it was fun to pack that many decks, but you don't need that many decks by any means. But it is a lot of games you play. You'll probably play a couple dozen games. And so, but really on Astrodar's point, bring decks you're gonna have fun with, decks that I think for me, I liked the decks that were a little thinkier, a little bit had levers I could pull on other people's turns, actions I could take off turn was nice. Because with a 4-player game, it's not your turn 25% or 75% of the time. So having something you could sort of be thinking about versus the most straightforward hero who has is on autopilot was not my favorite experience when I played Justice Wolverine. That was a bad experience. But yeah, and bring your tokens. If you're bringing Maria Hill, bring your own dang tokens because she uses so many. Oh my gosh!
Don't borrow Andy N's tokens from Maria Hill.
I'll jump in on the hero thing real quick. I think I have almost an opposite view of it, and I think we talked about this a little bit in a podcast episode, maybe about the con, but I prefer to bring heroes that are not super complicated and ones that I'm very comfortable with. I'm not bringing new heroes like Nick that I've only played once or twice, and I'm still learning how it all works. I'm bringing the heroes that I know that I can play almost on autopilot. Vision, Captain America, things I've played a lot because there's a lot going on. I'm talking to people. You're meeting new people. There's 4-player games. I'm the campaign that the con is going to give us. I have to learn that as well. So for me, I have so much brain space happening other places. I need to have heroes that I can play almost with my eyes closed and kind of enjoy the ambiance of the con. And the last thing I'll say on that is that if you don't play a lot of multiplayer games, you should think about things that way. And we'll talk a little bit more about deck building specifically for the con later. But, if you were used to playing true solo, a lot of those decks still apply. You don't need to change your deck drastically. Just play the deck that you like to play. And Astrodar said, nobody's going to shame you. If you show up and you play an optimized Doctor Strange leadership deck, I will shrug and say, cool, man. I really don't care if that's what you want to play. If you want to play Deadpool in the pool aspect, have fun, man. I don't care. Whatever you want to play. So everybody's super forgiving.
Yeah.
I think it's fun to see those fun decks. And Craig, what were you going to say?
I was going to say on that note, I took 8 last year mostly because I wanted to be able to play an aspect but also avoid hero overlap if someone that was kind of unnecessary because there's 50 whatever now heroes. It's very unlikely you'll run into that. But I was gonna say it actually is a good idea to have a deck that you feel confident about as a support deck or something that can overperform sometimes. Just depending if there's a bunch of people at your table that want to play certain heroes that might have trouble thwarting. It's nice to have someone that's amazing at it in your back pocket to pull out.
Mm-hmm. I will say one other thing that you remind me with talking about playing decks you're comfortable with. Be prepared to bring a deck, at least one, that you can play when you're sleep deprived. Play with your eyes closed, literally, because early in the morning, late at night, you'll be playing a deck. You might not want to be thinking about trying to remember what card you put on the top of the deck with Domino and how many damage you're going to do or whatever it is. Bring at least one deck that you can kind of play when your brain's a little fuzzy or you're distracted.
That surprised me at how quick games would come out of, like, we sat down for breakfast before the con Friday morning.
Yeah.
And then, when breakfast is done, it was like, hey, you want to play? And I was like, I have not had coffee yet, but let's do
yes.
it. Yeah. The other thing that I'll add to like when it comes to what to bring and cards, bring a couple of extra sleeves, especially if, like, it's okay for you to borrow sleeves and in and out of sleeves. Like, there will always be this moment beforehand where whoever is running the scenario, whoever scenario it is, everyone's going to unsleeve their obligation and give it to that person. They're going to put it in their sleeves. So if you're bringing a scenario, bring a couple extra sleeves for other people's, shadows or nemesis set or obligations. A lot of people did that. I actually didn't realize. I just break sleeves all the time, so I just always have a stack of extras. Yep. And then when everyone was doing that, was like, oh, well, I'm glad I have some extras.
You should bring sleeves for the campaign too from the con. Like, they're going to give you a bunch of cards.
Oh yeah,
and they're going to give you a stack of cards, so you're going to want to sleeve those. And the last year I forgot, and I had to go buy some at Game Center. It's not the end of the world, but this time I'm just going to pack a box. I am of a different opinion. I think I may be different than most people. I don't unsleeve into matching sleeves in a group game. If I play a 4-player game and your nemesis set is sleeved in different sleeves, like, that's so little information that I'm getting out of that. I don't really worry about it. Like, once a game you'll notice, like, oh, I know what the next card is. It doesn't bother me. I'm not worth the whole, like, re-sleeving thing. I just throw them all in and shuffle. But I know some people want to have, the same sleeves, so having a couple extras is not a bad idea.
Oh, no, I try to memorize exactly what it is so I know when it's coming up, what it is, the boost icons, what it's going to do to me. No, I obviously
try hard.
Not the case.
Yeah, right.
What about you, MrSelfDestruct? You haven't chimed in yet.
I'm just listening to all the experts talk. But I agree. I think overall the answer is there's no right or wrong answer to this. And that's kind of what makes the con great. It's every style of play, anything you want to bring, it all flies, and everyone has a great time. As far as decks, I brought, last year's my first year, and I said I'm going to only bring a certain amount of decks, and that list just grew and grew and grew. I think I brought Cyclops in all 4 aspects, and then I brought Phoenix in all 4 aspects, and then I brought like 5 or 6 more, and I think I did play every one of them eventually, but it was to the point where I was like, I would like to play this deck again, but I haven't played this one, so I forced myself to play around. So I'm going to try to cut it down this year. And I think another thing we've been talking about amongst ourselves in various Discords is the idea of borrowing other people's decks, which is something I still haven't yet to do. Even in my locals, I say I'm going to do it every week, and then I sit down and I build a deck and I want to play that. But at the con, I think it's a great opportunity, and I think everyone here would be okay with lending out decks, and I imagine most people at the con would be as well. But it's a great way to experience a different kind of deck building maybe than you would do, and to just leave yourself open to improvisation, and who knows what happens. Sit down, what do you want me to play? I think that's something I plan on doing. Now, if I still bring 10 decks is probably likely, but I'll try to do that as well. Yeah.
So one thing I'll say, if you're
Americano
bringing decks, go ahead. Astrodar, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it was Americano from MCM podcast last year.
Didn't bring any?
That didn't bring anything.
Yeah.
He just literally bummed decks the whole time, and it sounded like he had a good time with that. So.
The first 2 cons he was at,
awesome.
he said he was going to do it, and he would always break down and bring a couple decks. And then last year he finally was like, I'm not bringing any. Kudos. Shout out to Americano. So bring your player side schemes. Those have a lot of impact in a 4-player game, which a lot of this is going to be 3 and 4-player. So drop those in. Even if they're not in a deck, just like throw the stack of them in a box. And then cards that come out with that, like just throw an extra helicarrier into a box that you're bringing, because if someone else has build support, you might as well just shuffle that as your 41st card or 40 whatever card in, because you're going to get it for free. So have those things available. For sure, I every game, I think last year was the first year we had the player side schemes, and everybody was just like, I have build support. Like, okay, throw a helicarrier in there.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. But so
Also,
helicarrier is also a great.
Yeah,
I think you're going to get there. The unique aspects. I think helicarrier is a great one to have. Like, bring as many helicarriers as you want to fit in various decks, because games with X-Jet and Quinn Carrier, those are the 2 most common substitutes. But you'll run into that, and everyone's very amenable. But I think it's good to be the person to be like, oh, it's okay, you keep the X-Jet, and I'll take the helicarrier. So it's nice to have that, and that goes for all unique stuff. It's nice to have. I think last year, in addition to my 10 or whatever decks I brought, I also had a deck box of just these are my sideboard alt cards, and it was I think I brought every single player side scheme, various allies that might slide into different spots to not do things, and they came in really, really handy. And then it's just a matter of if you like that original formation of the deck, after you finish your game, put it back together the way you had it, or at the hotel that night, put it back together. But it's great to just be flexible and so everyone can have a good time.
I've definitely on the first turn of a game, someone played build support, and I was like, oh, you had that, and I just grabbed a helicarrier from my collection and threw it into my deck because I was just like, I totally would have thrown this in if I knew you were running that because I have no supports in my deck otherwise.
Yeah,
Andy and cheats at the con. That's what you need to
I
know.
do cheat. I also
Cheater.
Also with player size games, you can play over someone else's. So if you play like a third one, then you can just discard someone else's. So I did that to someone's Lay the Trap, and that went over really well.
Like passive aggressive PvP.
Did you play over it? Is that what happened?
That's what I did to you. Yeah.
Oh my god, I forgot that. In my memory, you were gonna play. You'll get these memories at the con too of players doing infuriating plays on you that you'll never let them live down.
Yes, yeah. I played a third side scheme because I was like I really want this one, and Lay the Trap might have gotten like an additional 4 added onto it from Master Plan or something, and then. You never let me let that down though, because it was like 20 damage.
20 damage. Come on.
Yeah, it's crazy. You were right. You were right.
One
thing that I did with the sorry.
Go, Greg.
I was gonna say one thing I did that I was happy I did was I initialed my player side schemes so I didn't get them mixed up with everyone else's because everyone's throwing them in.
Good call.
But maybe different sleeves or something would be fine too. I don't know.
Different sleeves. I think also for. If you have access to a printer at home, printing proxies, and I don't mean like professional card-backed proxies, just print out a slip of paper, slide it in front of a resource card for stuff like player size schemes, other like play under any player's control cards that you might give out, because you might forget to obtain everything back, and you don't want to lose your one copy of whatever it is, So that's another way to do it that I found helpful last year.
And I think usually
one thing I did that killed.
Well, with these unique cards, it happens a lot. Oh, go ahead, Brian. Go.
1, 2, 3, go. One of the things I did that killed 2 birds with one stone was I took some extra sleeves and a little index card that said, build support or superpower training. Put the index card in the sleeve and then put one into every deck that would want one of those, so that I had my master set of just my one copy of each, and when I would get my deck, I would take the one with the index card, take that sleeve, and just swap it with the real one. So that way, because there's only one of them, you don't have to have a billion of them. It's an easy way to be able to trade those in and out.
Yeah, and
That's
I think
smart.
Being critical when you're deck building about some of these unique cards is important, because considering a 4-player game, there's a lot of popular cards that everybody's going to think about. When you're building a solo game, it probably doesn't matter if you run Quinn Carrier or Helicarrier most of the time. Like, they're basically the same. But there are some decks where generating the resource is more important than the cost reduction. So you may need a Quinn Carrier. So oftentimes you'll sit down and someone says like, oh, I have Quinn Carrier. And they say, well, I have Quinn Carrier too. And it's like, well, my Quinn Carrier is specifically because I need to generate resource. And it's like, okay, well then I can swap mine out for a Helicarrier. That's fine. Or like someone says, I really need the X-Jet because X, Y, or Z. You might be fine with just a Helicarrier or whatever, something like that. That's usually a discussion, especially with X-Men last year. People would sit down and be like, who's running X-Men? Oh, okay. Well, do you have Utopia? Do you really need it? I need Utopia. Do you have X-Mention? Well, I really need X-Mention. So there's those kind of discussions. And I think an important thing to talk about here, I think most people are familiar with the multiverse rule, but does somebody want to kind of talk about what the multiverse rule is? And some people are very against it. Some people don't care. Maybe someone can explain what that is for everybody and kind of how it works at the con.
Yeah. I'll totally explain. It's ignoring that icon, the unique icon. It's the best way to kind of describe it of like, hey, the multiverse, infinite possibilities. Your Helicarrier or your Quinn Carrier was from Earth 615. And that way it's like, hey, we're just going to be okay that there are other Quinn Carriers around or other X-Jets around. And that's definitely one of those things of like, there's a few of those house rules that people have and that they bring with them. And it like, I think in almost every single game, someone had asked about like, hey, are we okay if this? I think the other common house rule was swapping out your identity specific ally for the team up card. If someone else was playing that person, then, you know, your identity specific ally just becomes a wild resource most of the time. So why not just trade it out with the team up? And like all of those house rules, like everyone is real agreeable with, which is awesome. But yeah, that's the multiverse rule.
Yeah, but there are some people who are like, no, I don't want to have 2 Nick Furies, you know, so that breaks the theme for me. And then, you know, that's fine. Like, if it's a big deal for you, I just won't play Nick Fury, or I'll take him out or whatever. But, you know, there's a lot of those cards like Nick Fury and Mockingbird and Ironheart, a lot of those basic allies that are in a lot of decks. Professor X, right? A lot of decks. And so just think about when they come out. Nick Fury and Professor X, maybe less so, because they're in and out pretty quick. You could play multiples of them around the table. But just be aware, right, that people are going to have some of the same cards. So
I do think with the spider theme this year, there will be a lot of people running spider decks, and I don't know for sure how the organizers plan to handle that with that. But I think each table will have their own. You know, I know at my table, we've all seen the Spider-Verse movies. Those are the #1 like cinematic portrayal of the multiverse. I think even within that aspect of Web Warriors, I think we're all even more amenable to the multiverse rule. You know. So I think that'll be something that we're going to see this year too with all those allies.
For me,
I think
the multiverse rule, all I care about is heroes. Like, I don't want 2 of the same hero at the table, but if someone's playing Peter Parker Spider-Man and somebody else has a Web Warrior deck and they pulled the Peter Parker ally out, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I don't care. But some people do care. Astro, you were going to say something.
Unless you're playing the Oops All Vision game, and then you want 4 visions.
Yeah, I sat down at a table last year and tried to play Vision, and then everybody tried to play Vision. Like, I don't know what that was about.
The only time Vision was played, it was crazy.
Was that as a prank because Vision is your least favorite hero? Were they just pranking you?
Yeah. I'm well known for hating Vision.
I was going to say that I think I don't think I ran into any games where people really cared. And most of the time, it was in the middle of a game that we'd remember. I'd be like, oh,
right.
I have Spider in my deck, and Spider's playing as a hero. And people are just like, yeah, just play it. Don't care. But to avoid a lot of that, I think it's a good idea to have a rough like elevator pitch of your deck of just like, hey, this is Miss Marvel Justice and it functions on this thing, or hey, I'm playing Iceman Aggression, I really need Utopia, and it uses Utopia a lot. And so like just having that like one sentence that can describe your deck can avoid a lot of the interactions like that. But yeah, I never ran into anyone that really cared as a whole. But just being able to pitch it real quick, because I think X-Men are the one that get hit the hardest with it.
Yeah.
Because their supports can be shared and so many people like to use them, they become a lot less valuable as a whole. Though it can lead to some cool moments of like, yeah, I've got Utopia, but we're going to let you ready this time or whatever. And it can create some really cool interactions. So don't like avoid the cards altogether.
Yeah.
But
I almost think on the other side of the whole multiverse question is like, you'll also see that, you know, a card you thought was super essential to, you know, to play isn't necessarily essential. It's not that big a deal. So sometimes you'll run into a situation where like, oh, I can't play my SPDR ally, but like that's fine. It's one card that's dead in my deck right now, and it's just not a huge deal. So sometimes it's just learning to chill as well. But yeah, either way that you go. I agree though with this year, maybe in particular, there might be more multiversal stuff going on. You know, because it's still a pretty limited number of Web Warrior heroes and Web Warrior allies. I mean, up until the Silk Pack, it feels like there's only like kind of one archetype of how you do Web Warriors. It's not a lot of Web Warriors to sort of change it up. So yeah, so I'm definitely going to be more amenable to that, or expect to see it. I just honestly I didn't really see that hardly ever, unless it was just literally like, oh, we started this game, I didn't realize that, you know, this ally that I'm trying to Voltron, you're also trying to Voltron the same ally, or whatever it is.
Right,
like,
right. And that's why it's good to have options. You know, if you bring your one leadership deck and it's a Voltron of Captain Marvel or whatever, and then you sit down with someone who wants to play Captain Marvel and leadership is the only aspect left, like you want to have options to, you know, pivot away from that. I think.
Right.
But I will say also, if you throw out the rules, and you can have some of the most fun games you'll have at the con are ones where you get a little weird with it, and like the Oops All Vision game that we just mentioned. I think Andy and I forget who, Kennedy Hawk was there. We did a all 4 Justice against the 4 Horsemen deck game that I don't think was like weird rule breaking at all, but we very much settled on a theme. We're all going to do this one thing we wouldn't usually do, and it turns into these great moments of just hilarity and chaos.
That was one of my favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just embracing that with the people you're playing with can lead to some unexpected cool moments, And FFG police won't, come and arrest you.
But they do show up. They walk around.
Oh, they're there. Yeah. They're there. They're just laughing like I don't see it.
So something that we've touched on a little bit that reminded me, and I'll just say because the atmosphere is pretty casual. Even the FFG employees who show up, everybody's very casual and kind of relaxed. So don't be afraid to ask for things. I mean, there's a lot of people. If you're not used to playing a multiplayer, it's usually pretty laid back. And don't be afraid to ask. Those who here on the panel who play with me regularly, that like I'll start to play a card and then be like, oh no, wait a second, I could do this better, and like rewind a little bit, and just ask like everybody, it's cool if I redo that last thing I just did. Most people don't care. We're just there to have a good time, to enjoy each other's playing our decks, and punch some villains.
Yeah, please don't overthink your decks and your deck list. Like, you could honestly bring core set precons and people will love to play with you. So, like, if I remember last year, that was such a heartburn. Like, I play tested my decks like 4 or 5 times before like bringing them over to the con and then playing it and realizing like that didn't matter. Like, everyone just wanted to have fun. It was okay. If I went to a 43 card deck, no one was card counting my decks. If I threw one in to make it 44, like, no one slapped me on the wrist. So please don't overthink. Like, I have to make sure it's perfect.
Right. Honestly, don't feel pressure to, if you don't deck build that often, or maybe you just use CDB, go for it. I think most of the decks I brought last year were from CDB. I was still kind of getting newly into the game. One, there's tons of great deck builders. You're going to find great decks. Two, a lot of those people are at the convention, and it's great when you sit down and play a deck and you realize the person that made it is sitting across from you. It's a really fun moment. I think the first game I played last year in the lobby was with AndyR. I didn't know who he was. We decided to play. I got out a deck, and it was, I think, your Phoenix Protection deck.
Phoenix Protection, yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, you're the AndyR. This is great. This is the deck. And I had no idea when I pulled it out. So it's great moments like that. And no one will shame you for net decking or whatever you want to call it. Just bring I think what Boomguy said, bring what you know you're going to have fun with. And that should be the number one rule, I think.
Yeah. Astrodar said a minute ago, having a pitch for your deck. I think that's super important. Any deck you're playing, multiverse or not, like sitting down and being able to say like, okay, we're going to play against whatever scenario. What does everybody want to play? And someone says like, oh, I want to play Phoenix Justice. Cool. But like telling people what your deck does, unless it's just a pretty standard, like I'm just thwarting, I'm the Justice player. But if it's anything funky, if someone says like, oh, I'm playing Rocket Justice, cool. But this Rocket Justice is really just about confused locking. I'm just going to get Sonic Rifle out and confuse locking. I'm not really going to be thwarting very much. That tells everybody at the table something. Instead of like 2 rounds in, you're like, oh, the Justice player is not actually thwarting. He's doing some a butterfly deck, which is cool, but now we're going to lose because nobody planned ahead. So being able to sit down and say like, oh, this is a Voltron deck, or this is a weird like a butterfly deck, or this deck is all about this one card that something like that, just to explain to people so we all go into it with like a chance of having fun and covering all the bases.
I strongly agree with that.
Yeah, some of the most fun games are when somebody has a deck like that, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm playing Rocket, like a butterfly, and then you're like, okay, I'll play War Machine.
Yes.
And, spam
the combos start rolling in.
Yeah.
Which, talking about extras, like if you are going to bring cards that are played under any player's control, bring all 3 of them so that you can like dish them out to the others. So if you're doing a protection deck and you're bringing Armored Vest, you don't even have to have it in your box, but like in the deck itself, but like bring the other 2. Because it's always worthwhile to put in and throw around, because someone else might have another defense deck that does stuff, but in a different aspect. Like those cards are so nice, and often in solo or even in 2-player, you don't always think about the importance of giving things out, but it really does ramp up. And in our house, we call that incentivized aspecting, where it's like, I may be the aggression player, but I'm going to hand out combat trainings and martial prowesses to everyone to incentivize them to attack. And that's totally an okay thing to do. If you notice it says play under any player's control, bring the other 2 with it.
Yeah, that's another card to pack your sideboard box full of, is play under any other player's control cards. I think it was Josaru last year. I heard that he was giving out cards for people to put in their decks to play on him.
Yeah.
Which
That's awesome.
is great, because then you're able to unlock these crazy combos that you would never be able to do in solo, and it's great. Like,
I think he had a game with Andy and I where he was like, someone play Guardian.
Yes.
And give me this honorary garden.
Right, honorary cards are a good one, or any of the +1 stat upgrades.
Yep.
I know Disguise is one that you can play under any character's
Skilled
control. So if
Investigator,
you have someone
that's
that's
a great one.
staying in
Skilled
Investigator.
investigator.
Always 3 of, for sure.
Just put 3 in.
Greg, you should definitely bring a armored vest and unflappable for your night crawlers for sure.
Yeah.
He likes those cards in any aspect.
For sure.
Yeah.
Hand him someone else.
Yeah, but that's a great call. Float Like a
Always
Butterfly
try.
can be played under anybody too. So if you're playing a Float Like a Butterfly deck, put them on other players as well, and just increase that damage. So look for that. That's something that you don't think about in a solo game. So it's a good call.
Even cell phone now becomes a more useful card at the con that you may not consider if you're in a 1 or 2 player game, because like the turns come out too much. But like now in a 4-player game, cell phone lets you target and ask people to activate off turn. And even though some people might house rule that, when you're at the con and someone may not want that house rule of off turn activations, like that can be a great way to help you out.
I'm glad you mentioned that card. That's the card I hope I see the most at the convention. I feel like it's under talked about, and it's so fun in 4-player, that card. That I think it'll unlock a lot of possibilities. And
especially if Nova is at your table. Like, help the Nova Force out.
Also, Alliance cards. Those are awesome at the con. Some of the older Guardian Avenger ones work too, but any of the Alliance cards, like, think about those. Put them in your decks. So let's talk about deck building for the con then. Let's move right there. I think that's kind of what we're talking about anyway. What are some other specific things that you think about when you are building decks to bring to the Con of Heroes, or modifying decks you already have to bring to the con? Like, what kinds of things should people be thinking about when they build a 4-player deck or a multiplayer deck?
So I think one of the biggest ones is, most of the time you can just take a deck and it's going to work, whatever. The biggest transition, particularly in 4-player games, and particularly if anyone ends up playing expert games while you're there, is the Justice player. Like, if you are planning to thwart for Justice, or thwart for a 4-player game, it is a very different style than for 1 or 2. So if you haven't played a lot of multiplayer, just kind of like give a little thought onto what that looks like, because you're going to need much bigger numbers. Like, that's exclusively what you're going to be doing if you're the only thwarter. But that's where I saw the biggest difference, is that if you are planning to bring a Justice deck that is focused on thwarting, then make sure that you can handle 4-player numbers.
100%.
Cards like Clear the Area are a lot less valuable.
Even the odds, all of a sudden, that one, oh man. Player side schemes and a 4-player, even the odds becomes gold.
The Justice Spider-Man ally is really good too, and he's usually skipped over because of his cost. But in 4 players,
a ton
amazing.
in 4 players.
Yeah. And I would say, have decks that you think can do that, because maybe you sit down and other people, no one offers to be that Justice player. If you're comfortable and you like doing that role, be the big Justice. Everybody can do their thing, and you can bring your specialized deck. I know a lot of people are excited when they have 4-player, because they're like, I can do this thing that focuses really in on this one, janky idea that's really cool, but like, I'm not going to thwart. So, somebody's got to thwart for me. But that's part of the communicating. But also, you don't have to go to those two extremes. You can have a deck that kind of is ready to do a little bit of everything, and also is helpful to have at the table.
Yeah, definitely. If you're gonna look into multiplayerifying your decks, one of the things that I would definitely encourage, and a lot of what we've already talked about is worthwhile, of the play under any player's controls. Like, re-look at some of those other cards. And then the ones where we kind of write them off in solo because the situations are always like, will that happen to me in solo? Will oftentimes happen in multiplayer. And so some of those situational cards are more likely to now come forward. So like get over here in aggression. If you're in Thor and you're like, I don't know that I can always bring, I guess it may not be the best example, but times where you're not sure that a minion will show up, they will show up in multiplayer.
Yes.
And so like you can start to rely on some of those more niche situational, because even the play, if a side scheme is in the victory display, you may not look at them in single player, but in multiplayer that will happen.
That was the coolest thing I saw last year, and shout out to AndyR because he was one of the people that did it. Seeing those cards with the play, if there's something in the victory display, you never really play those in solo or 2-player, but in these 4-player games, the con, having those cards, Andy had one. I know Schmendrix had one that was using those cards. They were really cool to see, being like really good because you're gonna have something in the victory display.
Yeah. You don't need to summon minions if you're Thor. Like they're gonna come out in a 4-player game. There's always gonna be a side scheme, a player side scheme, or a encounter side scheme. There's always gonna be a minion. Like there's so many encounter cards, and I think that's just something that you need to wrap your head around. And I agree that you don't need to hyper specialize. You can if you want to. You want to be like, I'm playing Miss Marvel Justice and I'm thwarting for 30 every turn. Like that's all I do. That's cool. But you don't have to necessarily go there like, oh, I'm the damage player. I have to bring maximum damage because there's huge hit points. Like you can do something that does a little bit of everything, and that if that's what everyone at the table's doing, you'll be fine. You just need to have that quick conversation beforehand, I think.
I'd also
and this
say,
may be. Oh, go ahead. Go for it.
All right. I'd say that if you're used to solo games, status is like super clutch, and everyone loves it doing status. But it's not as it's a nice to have in 4-player. I'd say it's not really necessary. You have room to flip down without confuses, even like because of the scaling. So I mean, don't feel obligated if you don't want to run into status to worry about it too much.
Yeah. Also, please note that a lot of the core set cards, revisit them because they are really built for multiplayer. So Make the Call, a lot of people forget that Make the Call is find an ally in any player's discard pile. So if you're just a leadership player, like you may be able to go to 4 allies in your leadership deck. What's wrong with me? Because other people have allies that Make the Call can grab to. Lead from the Front targets any player to give their board +1/+1. So a lot of those core set cards work really well in multiplayer. So give them a look again, because that can be super helpful.
To follow up on that with like Make the Call and stuff, there are card interactions that when you're stealing other people's allies and giving them back later, but when you're taking them out of their discard, you can get into some really neat stuff of like, stealing someone else's their ally from their hero kit ally, identity specific. That's what I was looking for. But using like sidekick on someone else's ally because you just have to control it, so you can grab a cool ally from them, or grabbing a something else while you have boot camp. Well, if you're like bringing Spider-Woman, where you can get those odd interactions that you're not usually able to reach out and grab, random Justice allies and stuff like that. So yeah, I really agree with like revisiting some of those old cards and some cards that might have really different interactions in multiplayer.
And heroes.
Yeah, I remember it was.
If you're used to playing solo a lot, there's a lot of heroes like you don't. Just because a hero's bad at thwarting or doesn't have access to confuse or anything like that makes them maybe bad for solo. But like Valkyrie is fine at the con because you can just say I'm playing aggression Valkyrie and I'm going to clean up minions. It's irrelevant that she can't thwart. That just doesn't matter at all. Or same with like Groot or Rocket is kind of squishy. It doesn't matter. Someone at the table will defend. There will always be an ally to block for you. There'll always be a protection player to block for you. Like those things are less important. I feel like the weaknesses of a hero matter a lot less in a 4-player game.
Yeah.
Brian, you can say something?
Your point about specializing, even if the deck is not specialized, the hero can specialize in what they want to do and not have to, be worried about what they just can't do. Like Valkyrie's not going to be a good thwarter no matter how well you build her deck, or if she, because you're throwing away what she is good at. So you can really lean into that and enjoy it. And I think you've you guys have all talked about it, but I just think looking at any cards that like help another player or give another player an action off turn, to me, and this may be a playstyle thing, but that almost always is a great feeling whenever you're able to give someone else a card or boost someone else's board of allies or his hero or something. And it's not something that you get playing two-handed, playing solo, even playing two-player at home. And that's a great way to, make friends. So the next time, maybe you can give me your helicarrier or something, But just leaning into multiplayer interactions as much as possible. And if you haven't played a lot of multiplayer, you might not know what those are off the top of your head, but as you go through the con, you'll see more and more of that, and that'll open up your mind to that kind of thing too, I think.
Yeah, because I was just looking at Command Center, War Room, all these ones that I write off in a 1-2, all of a sudden in 4-player, where it's like after an ally does this cool thing, and it doesn't even have to be your ally, and someone's ally is going to do that cool thing, so you might as well like get some table benefit from it. Sorry, Boomguy here.
And the helicarrier is one I keep coming back to. Every turn, there's somebody who needs one extra resource, and they're like, "Oh man, if only I had one more, I could do this 2 of these really cool cards." There's always someone who needs a helicarrier, so throwing those in there just because the player side scheme makes it free anyway. But even without that, like X-Jet works for other people who are mutants, but if you're running Quinn Carrier, like consider swapping it for helicarrier because you can always give a resource to somebody else. Every turn, I feel like in a 4-player game, one of the 4 is like, oh, dang, I'm 1 resource short of this cool thing. Oh, I got you. Use my helicarrier. Oh, here, have my Avengers Mansion. Whatever. Stuff like that is really awesome.
I've also
if you ever go back to the core set precons, and even if you play one in the con, that they all have helicarrier and Avengers Mansion, and maybe you forget, but you haven't played in a real long time, but in the 4-player game, like having a card to give to somebody and a helicarrier every single turn, it's like you are everyone's favorite at the table, even if you're just playing the core set, Captain Marvel precon or something.
Yeah. And then the last thing is like, if you're just really nervous about how do you transition a deck and you don't know where to get started, like if you're on Discord, please just reach out. We'd all love to be able to tell you, hey, you're good, it's okay. Or, hey, think about this card. Like, if you're unsure of where that start is, we would all love to help you feel like you can have fun at the con.
Yeah. And I feel like all of us would be happy to play with anybody who's new. I mean, I have a YouTube channel, so people know what I look like. If you're watching this, you already know who I am. Come up to me at the con. I try to meet as many people as I can. If you don't have any other friends or it's your first time at the con, you don't know anybody, I do make an effort to like go up and see people at a table by themselves and I introduce myself and I try to play a game with them. But if you don't know anybody and you're a little anxious, come up to me, find me. I will play a game with anybody. I hope to play a game with everybody. And I think everybody in this panel feels the same way. The con is welcoming in a way that honestly still surprises me 4 years in. I just have rarely ever been to a group where everybody is so welcoming and friendly and kind and willing to just work with you and play with you. Like, this community is amazing and the con is great. I'll stop like pouring all these great things up out of it, but I think you guys would agree. Like, it's just the community is awesome.
Yeah. Like I went there not knowing anyone, not being on Discord. Like I just went because it was like a good momentous time in my life. So it was like, I'm going to celebrate by going to the con. Went on my own, and getting to meet everyone here. And like Boomguy talked about, I think it was Saturday morning. I walk out, sit at one of the lobby tables, just kind of by myself because I don't know anyone really. And he comes up and says, hey. And so we were able to talk. And that definitely happens a lot. And so like, yeah, if you're coming and you don't know anyone and you're not on Discord, but you are on YouTube, like you'll be okay. It'll be a great time getting to meet all these people. And I definitely am an introvert who's to myself. And if I have like a stern face, like I promise I'm not actually that way.
You have the nicest face, Andy.
Oh, that's what I was aiming for.
That's at the hotel. Who's this pleasant guy over here? I'm going to see if he wants to play Marvel Champions. This is great. But it is true. And I think, don't be afraid to go up to anybody, ask to join a game. I think that try to play as games with as many different people as possible, and everyone will be welcoming. I'm the same thing. Last year was my first time, but I did know some people there. We have a pretty decent New York group that goes to the con every year, and I did play games with them, but I made an effort to not just sit with them the whole time and play. I tried to branch out and meet as many people as possible, and I'm so happy I did. I met all you guys and just had a bunch of varying different experiences, and even just from a pure gameplay standpoint, it's fascinating to watch other people play the game, both in terms of just deck building and also just how they play. Like, oh, do you prioritize this over this, or you go really fast, or you're a little slow, but I can see why you're doing it that way, and what kind of tokens you're using, what kind of this, that. It makes you see the game in a whole new way, because it is a really, even if you have a healthy local player market, it's a niche game, and I think that's one of the best things about the con is you're surrounded by all these other people that feel just as passionate about this very niche thing as you are, but also they all approach it in their own unique way. So it's just really just fascinating to look at from that perspective as well.
Yeah. What
Do you
about
all narrate your turns in multiplayer with everyone else, or is that just
Oh God,
That's just
do
you.
I might. I don't know,
prefer
honestly.
it. I like that's just how I am in board gaming in general. It's like I'm going to do my thing, but I'm going to let you know what I'm doing so we can move on. So, and it just also just helps kind of keep pace the show. Like there's a lot of going on. So, someone might come up to the table and you're chatting with someone or someone else chatting, and it just kind of loops them back in. Like, hey, I'm attacking here, thwarting here. Although also at the same time, there's some games that get moving quick enough where some of them I've been like, okay, I have 2 thwart. Someone put it somewhere. I have 2 damage. Someone put it somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so I think just the narrating helps keep people tied in, just as there's so much going on. So I really love narrating my turn.
Don't be afraid to
think
take
it's a good
actions out
idea.
of turn. Like, if you are sitting your turn
gonna
and
say
it's you're the 4th player, go ahead and draw your card off Avengers Mansion. Start planning your turn. Or go ahead and do, if you're going to play spiritual meditation, just call for action. Do your spiritual meditation, get your cards, so that don't wait and then start all your stuff when it gets to your turn. It just helps speed games up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, hey, I'm 3rd player. I'm not going to use my helicarrier this turn. So if anybody needs it, like, someone grab it. I don't need it right now. Like, you can kind of plan ahead to do that kind of stuff too.
Yeah,
Playing your turns ahead of time is a big one.
Yeah, and you don't have to necessarily narrate everything, but if you're sort of saying, like, I'm going to do a bunch of damage this turn, so people know to focus on thwarting, or saying, I'm going to thwart, I have 6 thwart, and people can kind of get a sense of what you're doing. I can take out all these minions, then they can plan ahead, and it helps move things along. And Craig, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, that part of the benefit of narrating, sort of, not everything, obviously, but there, especially with cards like Change of Fortune and Chance Encounter, some people might be trying to call dibs on some side schemes and minions. So you might, like, I would say, I'm going to kill this minion unless, and then someone screams at me, I'll be like, okay, let's go to that one.
That's so true. That's so true. If you're narrating, someone can cut in and be like, "Oh, could you please not do that? Is there anything else you can do with your turn? Because all I have in my hand is Professor X."
But I don't know. What you got a helicarrier, and then you can negotiate.
Yeah.
Definitely negotiating is good. So when you're narrating, though, I'm picturing someone doing like a DM in Dungeons and Dragons, like very dramatically narrating. And that's what I want to hear now.
Exactly.
There you go.
So I'm curious, I want to ask and give everybody a chance to answer this. What are some things that you thought going into your first con that you would find there or that you would need, and that didn't end up being the case? So everybody kind of go through and give an answer on that. What's something that you expected and then it was different when you went in the first time? Brian, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, let's see. I think the main thing that surprised me about the con was, how easy it was to find games and be able to play pretty much any deck that you wanted to bring, because everybody is pretty open. There's not many people that are dead set on what they're going to do, and just looking around and seeing people, and people are usually, there's like 3 or 4 people, or 3 people, 2 people, and they're sort of saying like, hey, we're about to start a game, anybody need a game? And somebody jumps in, so I'm definitely more comfortable being a little more outgoing like that. So if you see me and you want a game and you're like seeing me sit around, I can hook you up in my game, or find a game for you too. So, but I think the surprise that I had was that when I first came, one of the reasons I brought so many decks is I was like, well, a lot of people are going to be playing the new heroes, I might not get a chance to play because every time I'm going to sit down at that time it was Bishop and Magic, or this time maybe thinking like, oh, everybody's going to have Nick, Maria, Silk, and Shuri, but it turns out everybody brought Wave 1 heroes or whatever, so and that's the one you see the most. But you're going to see everything, so don't be shy about trying to bring the new stuff if you're comfortable with it. And you're excited about them. Bring some of that, bring some of the other stuff. But I was, I guess, surprised at how easy it was just to find games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the thing that surprised me. So I was at the first Con of Heroes in May of 2022, and I mean, at that point, really, COVID had been going on, for almost 2 years, and like that was really defining, at least for me and for a lot of people. It was coming to the con was the first public thing, like public event like that most of the people at the con had done. It was the first gathering of that kind or size, and so coming to it, and we were still wearing masks because that was like just ending. It was like the first of this kind of event. Like, we want to be in the news for being a super spreader. So we had masks. We were just coming out of an antisocial time where we spent not that much time with other people, and so I was so anxious. I was so anxious coming into it, and I just I had never been to cons of any kind. I had not been to this sort of event of just meeting people who I just have no idea what they really, how they are, what they care about, what they value, anything. And so coming into it and then having truly such a phenomenal time, people being amazing and so friendly and just so much laughter, and it was a huge thing for me, and I just loved that experience. It was really big just for me, like in the whole trajectory of coming out of the pandemic time, and so then it's only gotten better every year, genuinely, because then the next year was like literally, oh, that's what you look like. I didn't see your face last year. It was almost anxious in a different way the next year, and then last year was even better. And I mean, for you, that was your first con. Like it was yeah. It's only gotten better every year. I'm so pumped for this one.
Yeah, it feels like cheating to give like the same answer of like friendliness, but this really what surprised me the most. Not just so much even just like getting into games and people being like, hey, yeah, let's get you into something, but like, oh, hey, we're all gonna go eat, who wants to come with us, and just like looping people in. And so that's like, everyone's super friendly, even if you are not particularly extroverted. Like, if you just stand like awkwardly nearby me, like I try and loop you in, and like people do that. So just like stand by people and you will get looped into things, and everyone's great. So it's been fun, and that was the most surprising thing to me too.
Yeah, I agree with everything they've said, obviously. But I guess to do something new, I didn't expect quite how much. You get prepared for the con. Con's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Here are the con hours. This is what you'll be doing. No, the con is as soon as you land at that hotel until maybe even like when you get on the airplane from the airport. Like, people are playing games nonstop, and it can sound exhausting if you love the game. It's a lot, but I will say it was just amazing to just be around it all the time. To what I think Andy said, waking up in the morning, I'm groggy, eating breakfast. People are already deep into Expert Ronin over there. Like, what are you doing? But it's great. I swear every day I would go to bed, be like, I need a little break from Champions for a little while. 6 hours later, woke up and I'm ready to go again. So I guess that was my break. So it's just a great time. And again, everyone's amazing. Everyone's super friendly. And it was the first. I've been to conventions before, like the San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, those big conventions. It's really night and day. It's not the same thing. It still feels big and eventful, but it's small enough where you could meet every single person there and have a meaningful interaction with them. And it's the reason why, like, when I first heard about Con of Heroes, I thought, good for those guys. I'm glad they have something. I'll never go to that. I could never do that. But I did, and I'm so happy I did, and I've been counting on the days for the next one since the last year's ended, really. So, and I think I don't think anybody who's ever been to one would say anything differently. So.
Yeah, I think all that's also I agree with. But one thing that I was surprised by was that the amount of like other games being played after the stores closed in the hotel.
Mm.
So I think it's worth, if you like have a board game that you maybe haven't been able to break out because you live somewhere where there's not a lot of other people playing board games. If you want to try to play something like that, it's a good opportunity. I know I talked to MrSelfDestruct. I'll probably bring the Star Trek deck building game to try out in multiplayer because I've only done it solo, and I thought it might be more fun to try in multiplayer.
Same, yeah, definitely. That's a date for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice refresher to like take a moment and play something else. You're still playing games, but you know.
Yeah. There's like the hotel lobbies are there's plenty of time for it, and I think it's confirmed this year we have the ballroom as well that we had last year, so that's great. I think we got together a little Star Wars Unlimited draft last year. I think we're organizing something like that this year as well. Yeah. That was really fun. That was the only non-Champions game I played last year, but I do hope to expand my horizons a little bit.
Yeah,
with the additional time.
It was definitely cool to see like people playing, even though I think I had only played Champions my entire time there, to see some of those other games and then to be like, oh, I was curious about this and got to watch. I can't remember if Arc Nova was one of the ones that someone played. That was like
Americano and Kenny played Arc Nova.
Yeah, and it looked like getting to see it in person was like, okay, well now I'm gonna buy this game. So something that I honestly, I don't know if I need to talk to a therapist about this, but I was like, man, people are gonna be like so judgy, right, over like your deck and how you play, and it wasn't the right move or whatever it is. Like I expected to find a lot of that and didn't find any of that. And that definitely was a huge like, man, everyone really is here to have fun. Like I came in nervous that when we would sit down to game, someone's like, all right, we're gonna do Expert Venom Goblin, and I'm gonna stick Kree Fanatic in there with Goblin gear, and we're gonna do an Expert 2 with the Infinity Gauntlet, and like you can find those challenge games if you really want to, but the majority of the games that I played were standard, and it's great. And I will say, if you're someone who is like ready for those hard ones, like bring the scenario yourself and people will play them with you, but also have an expectation that standard games go 3/4 as long as expert games, and there's a lot to be played. So standard is a good way to help make sure that you get to play with all sorts of people. But then if you really want to play that challenge and you've got a challenge that you want to do, like bust it out, ask some people to join you. They would love to.
Mm-hmm. I think,
and I believe they'll do it again this year. They usually hand out challenge cards for the convention that are not,
we've got a
that are
couple
just their own custom ways to amplify the difficulty of certain scenarios. And I only did one last year, but I know some people, they make it a point to, I'm going to beat every one of these with people in this during the con. So that's another fun thing to target. Just try don't start that game at like midnight like I did last year.
No, don't do that. One of the things that surprised me, I think, going into my first con, going to the first con, I wasn't on the Discord yet. I didn't have a channel or whatever, and there wasn't as many content creators back then. But so I had largely played 2 players, and that was like, there's not like a meta, but we had kind of our own meta, right? Like, we really only played with each other. I wasn't involved in larger discussions, so like we had kind of identified for ourselves, me and my primary 2-player partner, like, okay, here's the cards that are good, here's the heroes that are bad, here's the whatever. But when you go to the con, like literally everything has been released. Somebody likes it, right? I don't like Valkyrie, but I played with Joss last year. He brought 4 Valkyrie decks in every aspect. He brought Valkyrie. Like, he enjoys Valkyrie. Brian loves Valkyrie. That's great. There might be cards that you've written off saying like, oh, either you playing solo and so you think even the odds, it's not really worth it, but even the odds is a great card in 4 players. Like, what surprised me is the number of people who are like, I love X hero or Y hero, and I thought like, well, that hero is bad, or I didn't get along with that hero, but somebody else likes it. So just the diversity of what I saw in the card pool and the heroes is awesome. It was rare, I think, in any year that I've been there that I've sat down and like pulled out a hero and somebody else had also pulled out the same hero. That doesn't happen as often as you would think, even when there were fewer heroes. There's always someone who wants to play something different. So that's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you learn a lot just while you're there.
There was last year there was a guy that's like super into Maria Hill that made like his custom side scheme that only grabs Maria Hill or whatever.
I saw that.
Oh, right.
So I bet he's gonna be pretty excited this year.
That's my buddy. That's my buddy Will. He's
nice.
in my New York crew up here. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
I really hope. Is he coming? He's coming. I hope he brings Maria.
He's coming. He's coming. He'll be bringing Maria.
Nice.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I think
thought,
that's you, Brian. You mentioned too. Like I thought last year we would just be seeing everyone wants to play Magic, everyone wants to play Bishop, and I didn't bring them just for that purpose. But I think honestly, almost the opposite. And I don't know if that's just because everyone thinks that everyone else will be playing them, or I just think maybe it's a level I want to bring who I'm comfortable with. But I don't think we're going to see a ton of Silk and oh my gosh, Shuri at the con this year. So if you start playing those April 18th and you fall in love with them, bring them, and I don't think you'll have any issue playing them. And same thing with Nick and Maria. I think the only thing with Nick and Maria is the allies won't be able to be run, but that's probably okay. We've all run those allies a lot, so that's but that's it's just it was so cool seeing every hero represented. I think some people are building bingo cards this year to try to play with every single hero, and you might think that's not really feasible. It definitely is. Everyone will be playing every hero multiple times, which is the great thing about this game, I think.
Yeah, I last year thought I was going to see Magic and Bishop all the time, and so I avoided them. I thought, like, everyone's going to have them. And I really saw them almost never. So if you're worried about not bringing certain heroes because either they're new and you think they're popular, or because they're just popular heroes and you think, oh, everyone's going to be playing whoever, just bring, if you like it, bring it, because I guarantee you will not find as many as now. There's 55 heroes. Like, the odds of everybody bringing the same ones are just not great.
Right.
Yeah. The only thing that I think I could probably count on is Caldias bringing Nightcrawler. That's I think the only thing that I am relying on, and maybe Boomguy and Vision, maybe.
Yeah. One in each aspect, or yep, definitely.
Yeah. I think the cool thing is you're seeing all these different heroes, and I've heard some people saying, like, oh, I don't want to bring this because I feel like it'll be cheesy or something. And don't be afraid, because a lot of times we don't play those heroes as Doc Stranges or whatever, or Spider-Ham or whatever. And if you love them, bring it, because people are kind of excited to be like, you know what, I haven't seen this in forever, and it's fun to play again with some of those heroes. So yeah,
It's about joy.
I remember playing Strange. Yes. Sorry.
Yep.
No, the con is about enjoying yourself, and like, I want to hang out with people who are having a great time. I don't want you to grind through a hero just because you think that's what the team needs or whatever. If you want to play Nightcrawler and it's like just the pre-con, go ahead, knock yourself out. If you want to play Valkyrie and you're just like, I'm only going to kill this minion, like, that's cool. If you're excited about it, that's what makes the con great. So whatever makes you happy and you want to play, you should play it.
Yeah, and like, if anyone is
open
worried
to
about
losing too, right? Like, it's okay if you play weird decks and you lose. Big deal. I mean, I don't think I maybe lost one game the whole con that year, and that's not to say I'm a great player. I was playing with great players. I think everyone, we play the game enough, but I think don't fall into the trap of I have to play this Justice deck because no one else is playing Justice. If you want to play something else, go for it. And if you lose, you lose, and then you can laugh about that afterwards. I think that's really important as well.
Yeah,
like, it makes for great stories.
Yeah, like, people's decks misfire all the time, and you feel the temptation to be self-conscious about it, but that's not the case. We've all played. It all happens. Like, that's okay. Like you said, like, the losses generally have for some fun stories or whatever it is, but no one is going in the debrief side of the game being like, it was your fault. You were the one. Like, no one's doing that. Everyone's saying that was fun. Maybe we try this again another time, or hey, let's reset and go back at it. Like, it's okay. Right.
Or if they do say it was your fault, it's like, it's really funny. It's like, it becomes like a thing between you, just like, when you did that, and it's just great. It's fun.
Yeah.
Lay the trap.
And lay the trap.
What heroes? Or I want to hear some heroes that y'all are thinking about bringing. Maybe you may have deck lists already, whatever, and if you do, we'll put those in the description and the show notes. But I'm just curious if you all have kind of figured out who you're going to bring at this point. As of recording, we're just about a month away, and I don't know when exactly this is going to get posted, but sometime the next week or something. So have you narrowed down the heroes you're going to bring? Have you narrowed down how many you're going to bring? And then one thing we haven't talked about yet is scenarios. Like, how many scenarios are you bringing, and do you know which scenarios you're bringing? So we're not going to go in order. You can just kind of say it, whatever. But give me some decks you're thinking about bringing, some heroes, and then some scenarios.
Yeah, so I'm bringing my favorite Peter Parker deck, Protection, defends the table. Like that is a deck that has been built for years that I've loved playing here, and then a chance to get to have played it at the con. Like I brought that thing last year. I loved getting to play it. I'm gonna bring it again because it's so fun for me to get to play it. And so like that one for sure. And then some of the others I'm not sure yet, but like I said, I'm trying to get one in each aspect. And then scenario wise, like last year I brought Mansion Attack with the Bastion setup because of X-Men 97 was going on at the time, and that was kind of fun and depressing all in one go. I didn't realize how tough that modular set was. My bad.
Doozy.
That's So I think scenarios this year, I will probably bring 2. I don't know what they are yet, but it'll probably be one from the Mutant Saga and then one from the Avengers Saga, just because I think those are some fun old ones to get to bring back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm really not sure on scenarios, and I feel like heroes, like I could say something now and it'll be different in 4 weeks, but I do have a magic aggression deck that has been like weirdly fun. It uses Asgardian allies, and it's just super fun. A Ghost Spider protection deck I think would be fun. I always loved playing her. I played Psylocke leadership doing X-Force with organizational support and like only X-Force allies, and Uncanny X-Force was crazy good, and so I kind of want to bring that because I think that deck would really surprise people and be very just fun to play in a game. And but yeah, so I'm not sure though. I honestly I probably will be building all my decks like the week of, and we'll see what they are.
Absolutely. I know I'm bringing a Cyclops in some variety. Probably not all 4 this year. Probably 2, maybe not 3. No, 2. I think. I have a protection deck I'm milling around with the upcoming Energy Shield attachment that's coming out, and I want to build that. And I love them in aggression, so I'll probably bring that. I've been enlisted into a similar Oops All Black Widow game this year that I think I'm going to be bringing a variation of AndyR's protection deck.
Nice.
Once Ready for a Fight comes out. I think AndyR, that was yours? Not AndyR?
I think so.
Oh boy.
Last year I had the benefit of being mistaken as AndyR for almost the entire so there were so many people who were like, oh, like idolizing me until they realized that I was not
the better. You were the better Andy. They just don't even realize.
There were so many people who were like, you know, yeah, they're like, I think I used your deck, and I was like,
Brian, didn't you have a similar issue with being confused with another Brian?
Yeah, my name tag said not Brian V, and I'm going to do that again this year.
Who means not?
Like,
All these doppelgangers.
I
thought you were
love
Brian V for a long time.
Warlock deck. Yeah,
I did too. I think during our Vision game, I might have thought you were.
Yeah, everybody gives me way more props, and then they realize that I'm just the secondary guy.
I think I still thought you were Brian V.
Yeah, everybody's like, I love your Adam
now.
Warlock deck, and I'm like, thanks. I like Adam Warlock too, but you know, I have a deck, and then I'm like, I really hope they're not talking about Wild Tutor because
the most famous deck ever in Champions, basically. But yeah, so I'm going to bring that Black Widow deck with Ready for a Fight thrown in there, and that's going to be amazing. I've already played with it a little bit. Scenarios, I have no idea. It's always the last thing I think about. But I do think about mod sets, and I think that's something that maybe we didn't really talk about much, but embracing adding different mod sets to scenarios during the con can bring a lot of fun. A lot of people do still just play with the recommended ones, and they're recommended for a reason. They work well with the scenario, but you can really change a game up by adding in different module sets. And I'm also tempted to be bringing the new Reluctant Foe card from the Baron Zemo set and just slipping it into every single game I play and seeing if people get happy or upset with me. You know, we'll see. But I just think that card's so fun. We did that at my recent local 4-player game last weekend, and it hit every single game, and it was always an amazing moment each time. So yeah, I don't know. That's as far as I've gotten with decks. I put some deck links in the show notes, like I said, of decks that one of Astrodar's a Captain Marvel deck that's all built around multiplayer card draw, giving out cards to everybody. That is a fantastic Con of Heroes deck that I might bring. And last year Nelson hosted a deck he built, I think, for last year's Con of Heroes, which is a Wasp, stay in alter ego and just heal everybody, constantly recycling mental cards with the girl ability. And I played that a couple times in 4-player, and that's awesome. But that's very special. cannot do that deck in solo. It will not work well at all. But for 4-player, it's just a great feeling just to be sitting back at the office healing everybody. I think you flip up to hero once or twice maybe. So those are 2 I might bring that I had played before, trying not to get too distracted by the cult of the new and having to play brand new decks. Like Andy said, it's good to have a deck that you're comfortable with and know can do well. Yeah. Caldias, who are you bringing?
I'm bringing some Nightcrawler decks. I'm definitely gonna I have a protection one I really like, but I'm gonna be removing the double resources and adding Ready for a Fight, and I think replacing Death Focus with Moira. Just because it seems like it'd be pretty fun to get extra card draw is like king with event-based heroes, so you want lots of card draw. I got him. I got a Webware deck with Nightcrawler. I got a Excalibur Justice deck I'm bringing, and I'm also going to bring a Psylocke Leadership, but it's going to be Mutant Mayhem focused instead of
Nice.
the other one. It still has Uncanny X-Force because that card's amazing, but it's all about bouncing people back and forth. And then I got a Magic Justice, and then I got Bishop Leadership. And I might try to bring a Cable just because he's a really good, like, he's like everyone's grandma handing out Werther's originals. So.
Okay, so real quick, because this has been mentioned twice now, and I'm clearly out of the loop. What is Ready for a Fight?
Oh.
Dude. Isn't that the one that gets our alter ego and flips up?
It's a
New prep.
one cost preparation in protection. It is requirement of a fist strength icon to pay for it. And it says something along the lines of when an enemy would scheme change to hero form, it attacks you instead. And you don't have to change. That's not one of the requirements. So it can work if you get advance or something and you're in hero form. But the protection decks love it because you cancel a scheme and you can get a free flip, and you also get attacked, which protection oftentimes really wants to happen.
And it's coming in silk, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's not quite out yet, and it's the first time an aspect card has a form change, right?
Oh, nice.
So
Probably,
that's extremely exciting.
Good to know. Thanks. Sorry, y'all. I didn't realize that was around. I got to catch up.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Like, form changing cards are some of my favorites in the game, and so Cable having his body slide, this new one, which actually, one of the heroes I'm considering bringing is Miles Morales because his double life lets you do some fun flip shenanigans. So I might be bringing him. I'm probably going to be bringing Valkyrie because I just went through a whole emotional journey with her. It's a little bit of Stockholm's or something now, but no, I had a good time finally figuring out how to play her.
Yeah, I read that post. I wouldn't have thought you'd be wanting more of that after the post. But
No, I totally brainwashed him. It worked.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's now I can see like a 4-player game. I was like, there's so much more potential that I'm going to be able to like do stuff. So I'm excited to try her out with a little less stress. And just managing more on the lower play count. But I'll probably actually be bringing Brian's deck on that, either that one or Joss's, so I had fun with both of those. I'm going to be bringing Venom Leadership, Andy's I'm pointing, like you guys can see in the same order. I'm bringing Andy's Venom Leadership deck, which is just a super silly deck with only Maria Hill as the ally that you just get to do some fun shenanigans there that I had a lot of fun with. And then I'm bringing Jubilee because I really don't love her hero art. So with the help of Bando Sirens, I'll have some alt art for Jubilee that I'm going to hand out. So I figured if I'm handing out here's some alt art hero cards, I should have the deck with me. But that's it that I've really thought about for heroes. I always bring, on the scenario side, I always bring Mutagen Formula because that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And I will be bringing that and Drang because those two are like my top 2 scenarios. So love playing those in multiplayer.
Drang's a really good one. Are you doing standard mod sets with each of those, or mixing them up?
I like to mix them up. I usually bring the standard with them as well, but for Drang, I will probably bring Bandit of Badoon and bring the Thanos ones. I can never remember the names. The Children of Thanos, and then the
Armies.
I like to
Black
combine
Order.
those two,
Black
so you
Order.
get the yeah. So I like to combine those two to get a roughly equal size one. And then because I bring mutagen formula, I like to take all the goblins out of there and make like a mini custom mod set that I put into Drang.
Nice.
Makes for some really fun shenanigans there. But yeah.
Well,
Nice.
I'm bringing
so-
Vision, of course,
go
this
ahead.
year.
What?
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
One of the things I think I'm going to do this year is I'm going to bring a few heroes, but I'm going to bring multiple aspects. So I'm going to have like the 25 cards I can slap on so I can play them in different ones.
Right.
So I have Vision in 2 aspects I'm going to bring this year. I have Captain America I'm going to bring in 2 aspects this year. One of them I'm pretty excited about. There's a protection deck that's all about healing and defending the table. So, but not one of the traditional kind of defense heroes you think of, but it's all about, it's got 3 copies of crew quarters, 3 copies of endurance, 3 copies of downtime. You know, it's got muster courage, which is one we don't see a lot of, but passing out tough cards, second wind, so just defending and then passing all the healing to keep everyone alive, be kind of the leader of the Avengers. I think I'm going to bring Jubilee. I've been workshopping some Jubilee decks that I want to try out. She's fun. And then Iceman, which is like my favorite from last year, and I've been just continually playing a ton of because I just really enjoy Iceman. And then Groot. That's my list. So I don't think Jubilee, Groot, Iceman, and Vision are going to be a lot of like, you know, competition at the table. I think everyone's going to be fine with me playing those. So those are bonuses. You know, I look for heroes that I probably won't see a ton of, and then building decks that can be helpful or do different things. Just to kind of mix it up. So I'm pretty excited. In terms of scenarios, I have no idea. I'll probably only bring 1 or 2. Everybody already has so many scenarios that I generally don't even get mine out. But I want to have some for at the airport or in the lobby. Brian and I are, you know, the 6 a.m. club. So when we're out there in the morning, just have one to play. But generally, like once we get to the game center, we either will leave my scenarios at the hotel or I won't bother taking them out because there's so many scenarios all the time. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about bringing.
Yeah, so I'm the same way. I'm probably going to only bring a few scenarios just for on the way there, or if I'm the one running the game, you know, early or late. Probably a couple mods to make them fun. Last year, I do remember I had a game where we did Sandman with the Jurassic Savage Land set with the dinosaurs, and then also Kree Fanatics, and we lost like 3 turns in. It was hilarious. So you know, some stuff like that. But ironically, I am bringing Groot as well. So you know, we can't bust those both out at the same
Groot
time.
Club.
I'm going to use Groot Club. I'm going to use a updated version of Man is Obsolete's deck that I think he posted a year or so ago. Plant Grows and Shield or something along those lines. So it uses a little bit of the Shield stuff. Big Justice deck. I also was thinking about Jubilee Aggression, that all art, and also she's one of my favorites. So, and Astrodar's article made me want to play that deck again. And Quicksilver Aggression probably also is in Astrodar's article that I gave to him. So you have those. I'm excited about some of the new cards. So I am bringing a Justice Magneto that does Gumbo Diplomacy. I think that might be fun if somebody's running other X-Men or X-Force stuff. Magneto can kind of keep everything going with his good stats and solid stuff, and then, you know, bust out the gunboat for the big numbers. So I think that might be fun. And then Thor deck that's going to use the new Raft card that comes with Shuri, locking up the allies that you're grabbing. And then just yesterday, the Infiltration card that goes and fetches a minion and thwarts. So that got me excited to put that into that deck. So I'm putting that together. And then Ready for a Fight is another one I'm excited about. I've had a Gambit deck in Protection that I've been playing for like the last couple years, and one of the problems I always had with it was he likes getting hit and doing stuff back to the villain, but he also likes his alter ego side where he can do the thwarting. And Ready for the Fight seems like the piece where you could do both of them. You know, you can get that look at the top cup cards and do some thwarting, and then flip up and do all your damage back to the villain. And then the other card that is coming with Soak, Stop Hitting Yourself, where you can do, it's an attack card that does damage back equal to your defense. And Gambit has a card, Natural Agility, that increases his defense based on how many counters he has. So it's a little bit of a meme deck just to see how much damage I can do by defending once. So it might be fun, or people at the table might hate me that I'm like just not doing anything and then just bursting out like 50 damage or whatever. But you know, it seems like a fun thing to do in 4-player. And a Magic leadership deck with Mutant Mayhem, and trying to get a card from every wave. I might have a Soak deck just because it might not be many people playing her, and I wanted a Web Warrior, and I brought Gwen last year, and figured, well, yeah, I'll just bring Soak.
You know, I'm realizing when you mentioned Stop Hitting Yourself, I might bring a Spider-Ham Protection, because now there's Taunt, there's Stop Hitting Yourself, and there's what's the card that was just
Ready for a Fight?
No.
Riposte?
No. It's like oh gosh, what was it? It's another like it's like Spider-Man. He's making a quip, quick quip.
Quick quip. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was revealed.
Yes, and so I had made a like taunting Spider-Ham deck that like doubled down on the whole taunting thing that he does, because he already has a card in his kit that he taunts. But now I could even update that and make it even more just like totally about just the villain, and that sounds like a deck. So I got to do that.
Andy, if you bring Spider-Ham, will you commit to high-fiving, making noises?
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything?
I'll
Okay, good.
I'll be practicing my John Mulaney voice. It'll be,
Okay.
I'll be ready.
You're on podcast now. We got to hold you to that.
I love it.
Oh, yeah. And the one deck I'm really excited about, I can't believe I forgot this one, is a Deadpool deck in leadership that just super Voltrons the Cable ally and just goes ham. And it's if you sit at the table and I'm playing that Deadpool, I promise I'll make up for the fact that I'm playing Deadpool. Don't worry about the name.
He's the hero
I
that
look forward
most
to seeing
surprised me
that one.
last year ago.
Yeah.
I had such a negative opinion of Deadpool, but then seeing him played at the convention, I saw just how powerful he was, and if the person is playing him knows him well, then he can really control the chaos in a fun way.
Yeah.
So he's one I'm never disappointed to see anymore at the table, I think.
Well, nobody brought up the pool aspect in the decks they're bringing. Is that right to assume that nobody here is bringing a pool deck?
Not necessarily. I played a lot of your Star-Lord pool after the con last year that you mentioned, and it's a total blast.
It's so fun.
I've died multiple times using it, but blaze of glory, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not planning on. Yeah.
I'm planning on bringing one. I just haven't decided yet. I bought Domino last year in pool and really like Star-Lord in pool. So I don't know. She-Hulk's cool in pool. There's a couple options.
Yeah, the one thing that is awkward with pool is the whole Crisis of Infinite Dread pool. Is you gotta be ready to like, I don't know, like you should kind of make up for the fact that you're playing Deadpool. You really have to make up for the fact that you are bringing Dreadpool into the game. So I almost think like I'd be more likely to play pool if I almost just cheated and we didn't add Crisis of Dreadpool to the
See,
deck.
Andy's cheating again. Here he goes.
Yeah.
It's just a really
You're right, though.
Really
it is the
annoying.
worst part about it.
Yeah, you feel just very again. You feel a little. That's like the one area where you're like, I feel bad about doing this to other people. So
Right.
Yeah.
That's the worst part for me is like I played a pool game, didn't really think about what cards were in that modular encounter set or whatever that you have to put in.
Yeah.
Once you trigger it. But
They're all
like
bad.
I was playing a direct approach Cyclops deck that had like the whole thing was get Havoc upgraded like to he's doing like 7th ward. It's a very dumb deck. But every time I got Havoc in play, like that card would come and steal him, and I was
Pool
like,
eyes.
Pool eyes.
Pool-
Yeah,
right, yeah,
like,
yeah.
treading
that's like
water
worse
here.
than Dreadpool, honestly. Yeah, that's So honestly, that's what I would just suggest to people, like cheat. Yeah.
And also, like, as far as bad experiences, similarly, I remember I was playing with TJJJJJJ, and he had I'm going to Adam Warlock with the most expensive allies, and I was playing a rogue deck that only used the 3 pool triples, but we played with Crisis, and it, of course, showed up. And every time, Pool Eyes took his allies.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I was just doing it for the money. And so, like, it was an unfortunate game. He was a great sport about it, though. And so like, bring Pool, even if it messes things up. Like, everyone's a good sport about it.
Yeah. Well, I guess what we're learning is if you're gonna play a pool deck, probably ask everybody: are you Voltroning anybody? Do you have any really important allies you can't
Do you
lose?
care about people in your deck?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll bring a Nightcrawler pool deck so that you can have a good Nightcrawler experience with Caldias, and then come to me, and I'll ruin it for you.
Nice.
That's a rough review. All right,
I'm
so
kidding.
a couple quick hitting questions that are away from deck building. There's a couple things outside of the con that I wanted to kind of touch on real quick for those people who are going to be there. I know some people are already on Discord planning to go see the Thunderbolts movie. Is anybody here planning to see that when it comes out over the weekend?
I was thinking about doing it
Collective
maybe
shrug.
Thursday early if I could, just to get it,
Okay.
just to check it off the list. I don't like. I want to see it opening weekend because I really hate like some whatever clickbait article ruining something about
Right.
the movie.
Spoiling it for you,
So I'll probably try to do it. Maybe I don't know how early or where the theaters are around that hotel, but I'll try to do it probably before Thursday evening if I can.
So
Yeah, it's right down the
last year.
street.
Okay.
Last year I went to Guardians 3 on opening because I hate having things spoiled, and then I mostly felt FOMO the whole time I was there. There were
Right.
games going on when I got back, and so I'm probably not going to this year, but I also keep pushing off going to see the new Captain America. So I had to listen to Winning Hand to spoil it for me before.
Oh no!
Sorry.
Oops.
That is not a you thing. It's been out for ages.
Yeah, I feel like at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the weather in May is going to be pretty decent. So usually it's
It's
nice out. It's not too
freezing.
hot yet.
Whoa!
Oh my
Decent.
God! Look at this
Bro.
guy freezing.
It's like
So
60
nice.
degrees.
So nice.
Get out
Oh
of
my
here,
God.
this guy.
It is
guy.
beautiful in Minnesota. Yeah, coming from New York, it's an oasis.
There's
It's
places
awesome.
to eat.
I wore jackets.
We're going to have
Yep.
some
Orange.
food trucks this year. So those of you who were last year, there was
Oh,
no
cool.
food at
Oh.
the Games Dinner, which stinks.
There's food trucks.
Breaking news.
Yeah, so I've organized some food trucks that are going to be there for the con. So we're going to have
awesome.
2 different food trucks throughout the weekend. So we'll have different choices. There's one that's like Japanese and one that's more like traditional kind of sandwiches and meat and stuff, but they also have vegetarian options. I tried to get things that have a range so people like different stuff. So there's going to be there throughout the weekend. But there's also places to walk to.
Oh, cool.
There's a Punch Pizza, which is awesome, just down the road. There's other things. There's an Indian place around the corner that people go to that's good. If you're going to be there,
Good for dates.
yeah, please try to
We had
patronize
some
the
double
food
dates
trucks.
there. We just at the Indian place, sharing dishes. You can share dishes. The Indian place, huge things. There's a banh mi Vietnamese sandwich place nearby. It's delicious.
Yeah,
It's not
all that's
close, but we
walkable.
I walked to Bonchon. That was pretty far, but it was still walkable.
That's a bit of a hike.
Good.
I'm gonna like.
I can't believe I had time.
The restaurant in the hotel is also quite good, honestly. If you want a nicer, like not like it's not crazy fancy or anything, but a nicer sit down
They
meal.
bring your burger to
It's-
you.
Or they bring your or they could bring your burger to the games
Yeah,
hall in the
yeah.
hotel.
That was
Which,
awesome.
as I was drafting, they brought me with full silverware and everything, my sandwich, and a guy in a full out suit, and all these sweaty nerds drafting cards. I was like, "Oh, thank you, sir." very much."
Darshan?
It was great. It felt like royalty. So that's good. But yeah, definitely the food trucks is a great idea because otherwise I don't know what I know. Astrodar, me and you ordered delivery at one point during our campaign.
Yeah.
A lot of people were doing that
sometimes
last
you forget
year.
to eat, and don't forget to eat. Just take care of yourself. Take
So
a second, feed yourself, drink some water.
The food trucks I thought were going to
That's
be an
important.
awesome option because you can just pop out, grab some food, pop back in.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people don't
absolutely.
have cars and stuff, so we tried to find those. That's going to be good. I know there's some people talking about doing free comic book day, which is on Saturday, I think. And there's a number of comic book shops around, but I know the Source is the closest one, and maybe AndyN as a local can speak to that a little bit. Are you going to free comic book day?
I don't know if I'm going to it because, like Astrodar said, like I feel like any minute away from the con feels like, oh, I wish I was back there. But I think that the Source does a big. I mean, it's huge. It's like a warehouse. It's worth a visit. I think if you have time, anyways. And I think the comic book day would be a good reason to do it.
Yeah.
Are we all staying at the same hotel, other than AndyN? Of course, is everyone staying at the con hotel? I think there's a few people who are staying at different places.
I'm staying at Andy's basement. I
Yeah,
think.
I'm basically staying at the hotel anyways. I'll be there when you wake up, and I'll be there when you go to sleep.
Yeah, I am. I think we are. But I will say, if you're not staying at the hotel, because there are other hotels in the area. I know last year some people were staying at a nearby that maybe was a little cheaper, possibly, but not quite right next to the game center. But feel free to come to the hotel and just hang out in the lobby.
Yes.
That's totally fine, and you'll feel like you're just a part of it. You'll just have to travel a little farther to finally go to bed at night.
And if you're
but
local, just like come hang out in the
come
lobby.
hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're
Locals,
local
too.
and you didn't even if you didn't get tickets to the con, I think that's totally fine to
Yeah.
come hang out.
100%.
Come play some games.
For sure.
There's
Yeah.
lots of
Just hang out with
foods
nerds. All right, so that's kind of everything I want to touch on. I think we touched on a lot of different stuff about con and going to the con and using our experience. If you have any questions, all of us are on Discord. I'll put all those names in the description if you want to talk to people. But I think everyone here is very friendly and open to random messages from strangers who are coming to the con who might, not know what to bring or have other questions that we didn't think about. But anybody have any final thoughts here before we kind of sign it off? Anybody else that we forgot to mention?
Yeah. So I do want to at least ask one other question because this was a thing last year. I don't think it's a thing this year, but I'm going to ask if it's a thing, which is using a rideshare service, whether it's like Uber, Lyft, whatever your thing is. Is that okay in Minneapolis? Is that like a common thing? Can I trust that, or should I like get a taxi service?
Oh yeah, I think Uber's still functioning. Yeah, last year
Okay.
there was a big question because there was like a law getting passed, and then I think they backed down eventually. So yeah, you should be all good. Uber, as far as I know. So
Awesome.
Awesome. I wanted to mention, Astrodar mentioned it briefly as well, but Band of Sirens, who's another Minnesota local, another active member of the Discord, he took upon himself to make a couple alt arts of heroes that he's going to be giving out. And then Astrodar and myself kind of hopped on and did some requests. He requested a Jubilee, and I requested a Cyclops that we also had printed. And he's going to be giving those to us to hand out at the convention. So if you see any of us and want a Jubilee Cyclops, I think he has Magic and X-23 custom alt art, not official anyway, but they look incredible. Come up, and we've got a bunch to give out, so we'd be happy to do that.
I was gonna mention as well too. I don't have a bunch to hand out, but I do have a
Ooh.
single copy. I don't know if this is really showing up there, but Mr. Negative scenario, which is definitely a scenario I'll be playing over the weekend with many of you fine people. But if you come up and want to play a custom content scenario that I created, Mr. Negative is, I think, a bunch of fun, and I'd love to play it with you. So come and find me and ask me, and I'll have one copy of it on the prize table. So you know this, so you can beeline there if you're interested in it. You can, if you're watching this, you know that is on the prize table, and you can go grab that if your name is called. Well, everyone's name gets called, I feel like, at some point for the door prize. So try and beeline over there if that's what you're interested in.
Yeah, while we're mentioning promos and things to bring, I just want to say, if you have extra of promos, the official promos from things, or if you're looking for them, bring stuff along. You may probably find people to trade. There's definitely a lot of trading last year. There probably will be some this year. And the design team is going to be there at some point, at least, several members of them. I know on an interview, Caleb said he was going to be there. So, if there's stuff you want to have them sign or stuff like that, bring those along. They're very friendly. Don't overly bug them, but they're cool and they just want to talk about the game and hang out just like the rest of us.
Yeah, Caleb signing my Shadow of the Past, that's like, oh man, all for it.
Nice,
and
nice.
I definitely want to say, like, to anyone who you are nervous because you don't know a lot of people and, whatever that is, like, please don't be afraid to find any one of us and just come up and be like, hey, I know I saw y'all were on Winning Hands YouTube panel, and like there will always be a seat next to me, and then for us to play on the next game. Like, don't be afraid if you were like, I don't know what to do, I'm just kind of standing here. Like, come find one of us and just say hey.
Yeah, I think you speak for everybody in that case, Andy. Like, just come up and talk to me. I'm happy to just chat champions. I'm happy to play a game, whatever. I think, to jump on the custom stuff, I know you guys are giving out custom cards. That's awesome. I've been working with Band of Sirens for a while now, and we're creating a whole set of... We're working through the game to do every single hero with an alt art card, and we announced that back in November or December. There's a video. We showed off the core set cards. We have now finished Wave 3, and so I'm going to print the core set, and then Wave 1, 2, and 3. That's 20-some heroes, and I'm printing enough so that everybody's going to get a random pack of 4 hero cards at the door. So they're going to be... I'm going to make sure there's no duplicates in there, but you're going to get a random 4 cards, kind of like a little booster pack style, and you're going to be able to take those, and then you can trade and get the ones you want. So everyone's going to get some just for showing up. So yeah, it's only through the Guardians wave, so it's older heroes, but yeah, you can trade for your favorites, and hopefully that'll add like a fun component of like, I've got this extra hero I don't want, I want to trade for this or that. So something fun to start conversations and have stuff to walk away with. So sounds like there's going to be a lot of custom stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's great.
Thanks,
Boomguy.
I really liked the promos that they did with the blind bet. I know they were controversial, but I liked them a lot, so that sounds really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I'll
of stuff.
have that. I'll have Nightcrawler alt arts I'm handing out that I
Nice.
printed off.
Wow, look at this.
And
Everyone's
I
got
should have
something.
invited
This is
Sandy. He's the
awesome.
one that does those giant cards. You guys have any of those?
I've signed
I got one of those
did
last
last
year.
year,
It's
yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Is it Sandy or Andy S? Is that
Yeah,
another?
yeah.
I think it's just S and
S
I,
Andy.
so that's...
That's right.
All right, well, that's kind of the panel discussion. This has run pretty long at this point, but hopefully people got some value from this. I just wanted to share our experiences with having been at the con however many a time, and just get some more information out there, because I do think, like 2 of you here, your first one was the last con, and so there's always people that are the first time. The numbers keep growing, so surely, again, there's a bunch of first-timers. So if you're the first-time visitor to the con, don't be nervous. It's going to be a ton of fun. I promise you'll walk away with friends. And having been there 4 times now, there's just people you see every year that I don't see during the year, And so now it's like I catch up with friends, and it's like, oh, how you been? We've only chatted on Discord for the last year, but it's good to see you again and hang out. So I'm super excited. But I thank you all for being here. I appreciate you taking the time and sharing what you know with the community. And I look forward to getting a game in with all of you here in the panel and then with everybody watching. So... I will just sign us off and say goodbye, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching this. And if you have any other questions, reach out to any of us. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.